Hello, we are here to present Group 2 final project on day-by-day CRM software. I'm Wumi Olaseha, and my other group members are NAYREET, Islam, and IZUCHUKWU. As we know that vulnerabilities in a system pose security risk when exploited by threat actors, as it could lead to failure of confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the system. In the course of this presentation, we will analyze the vulnerabilities identified in the day-by-day CRM software, the static code analysis, and the fixes applied to mitigate potential security risk. And finally, we will make additional recommendations where required. Day-by-day CRM is an everyday customer relationship management system designed to help businesses keep track of their business, customers, tasks, appointments. The CRM is offered as an open source software. It could be self-hosted platform and as a hosted CRM system on daybydaycrm.com. The languages used for writing the software were JavaScript, PHP, HTML, Blade, and others. Some of the features include task and lead management, client and user appointment, upload documents, and keep track of client documents, among others. Now I will pass the ball to NAYREET to discuss the next steps.
Thank you, Umi. So the vulnerability I'm going to talk about is missing authorization. So what that basically is that in day-by-day CRM versions 2.0.0 through 2.2.2 are vulnerable to missing authorizations. An attacker that has the lowest privilege account, even an user, can view the appointments of all other users in the system, including administrators, even though this type of users was not authorized to view the calendar at all. So the vulnerable class here is appointments controller under app HTTP controllers package, and the affected feature here is user management. From the impact analysis, we can see the base score of this vulnerability is 4.3, which is moderately low. The attack vector here is network. The attack privilege and the confidentiality matrix is low for this vulnerability. For the applied fix, we are going to look at the commit which was performed on June 25, 2021. So here, anyone or any requests invoking the module calendar, previously it was providing the view of appointments calendar. However, in the applied fix from line 18 to line 21, the module calendar is now authenticating the users prior to the calendar view. For authorized users, it returns a valid view which only allowed users can see. And for unauthorized users, it provides response such as you do not have permission to view the page. For quality analysis, we're going to look at what are the tests which was performed to address this vulnerability. So we looked into the test class appointment controller test under test unit controllers in appointment package. So from our analysis, we saw that they covered basically three scenarios: whether an appointment can be done within time, or whether a late or an early appointments can be made. So in our analysis, we found that the testing only focuses on the appointments with respect to start and end time, nothing else. So with respect to the module calendar, the code and branch coverage is not achieved. What that basically means that all the lines within the calendar module was not tested, and all the paths or behavioral paths within the calendar module was not tested. The user authentication process prior to viewing the calendar is also not mentioned here. So our recommendation here is add two unit test module, one for authorized user and one for unauthorized users, like how the calendar module behaves in case of different types of users. The next vulnerability is kind of similar to the previous one. So here an attacker with lowest privilege account, for example, an user can view the absences of all the users in the system, including administrator, even though they were not allowed to do so. So the vulnerable class here is user controller under controllers package and user under model. So and the affected feature here is user management. From the impact analysis, we can see that base score here is 4.0, which is moderately low. The attack is through network, and the access complexity matrix here is low, and the confidentiality matrix here is partial. For the fix, they initially added two module, which is can change password on and can change role. So these two modules basically ensures only admin and owner can change the role and password unless it is the user itself who is changing it. So in the calendar users, the for the in the calendar users, in line 43 to 46, the module calendar users actually authenticates the absence view role before providing the actual view, and the module update in line 251 to 256 and 286 to 288 actually validates the role before doing the actual update. For the quality analysis here, we looked into the user controller test under test unit controllers user package. So here we found that the testing for only owner can update the user and user role is provided through unit test module. Only owner role can update user. However, testing for authentication prior to absent view is missing in this test class, and we recommend to add that unit test. I'll now pass the mic to Izu.
Thank you very much, NAYREET. So I'm going to be looking at the cross-site scripting. So cross-site scripting, SSS for short, attacks are a type of injection in which malicious scripts are injected into trusted websites. These attacks occur when an attacker uses a web application to send malicious code, generally in the form of a browser side script to a different end user. Vulnerabilities that usually allow these attacks to succeed occur anywhere a web application uses input from a user within the output it generates without validating or encoding it. Now, for the day-to-day CRM, the tax controller module has a cross-site scripting vulnerability that allows users to view unauthorized tax details of others. So this basically means that unauthorized users can actually view the tax details of other people. In terms of the overall impact of this vulnerability, it's a low, it's medium to low. The access vector is network, and the access complexity is medium, and it impacts on integrity. This vulnerability, I forgot to mention, is within the version 2.20 version of the day-to-day CRM, and it's actually found in the controllers and packages of the application. So from a fix perspective, if you look at line 85, you would see that in the add column module, the tax title has been removed so that malicious users are not able to, when they do get requests, they are not able to view the tax details of other users. So from a quality analysis perspective, as you can see, within the tax controller's text, a couple of scenarios have been tested to ensure that the fixes, are actually adequate enough, in remediating the identified vulnerability. So scenarios like creating new tasks, adding projects on task, updating assignee, updating status, deadlines for tasks, and listing new tasks. Really, all of these scenarios have been tested, and it is from the test. It appears that only authorized users are able to view the task, and so this gives us sufficient assurance that the remediation or the vulnerability has been fully remediated. I'll pass this on to Olawumi for the next vulnerability.
Thank you, Izu. The next vulnerability is weak password requirement. The CVE is 2022-22110. The version affected was 1.1 to 2.2.0. You will see that the day-by-day CRM here enforces weak password requirement in the user update functionality, such that a user with privileges to update his password could change it to a weak password with a length of a single character. Hence, the CRM platform does not perform any password length or strength validation when changing a password. So this may allow an attacker to break false user's password with minimal to no computational effort. This is a potential confidentiality issue, as the CRM generally has client personal identifiable information. Also, it was noticed that there was no limit set to login attempt. And looking at the complexity of the vulnerability, the overall impact is low with a base score of 4.0. And the access vector is network with a low access complexity, and there is only single authentication required, and the confidentiality matrix is partial. In terms of the fixes that was applied, this was done in June 2021. Firstly, for the function rule of store user request, it sets minimum password length to 6 characters. However, prior to applying this fix, you will see that on line 32 and 33 of the function rule of store user request, there was no minimum length of password set before. Later, it changed it to 5 character first, and then finally changed to 6 minimum characters. For the function rule of update user request, it put a limited number of updates and change attempt to 6. But before this was done, you will notice that on line 32 and 33 of the function rule of update user request, there was unlimited number of login change attempts, but now it's been updated to a minimum of 6. For further recommendation to improve the security of the CRM, we could explore including security questions prior to the access, or we could set up a multi-factor authentication. In addition to something we could include something you have. For example, a token or cryptographic key. As per NIST recommendation for securing personal identifiable information available online. Though the complexity is not mandatory anymore in line with updated NIST 800-63-3, but I will still recommend a combination of password length and complexity. Also, this project has set a minimum password length of 6 characters and NIST 863 recommended minimum of 8. But I would recommend setting password to a minimum of 12 characters. And the reason is because, as we can see in the chart here, it takes 34,000 years to break 12 complex characters password and only 5 seconds to break 6 complex characters password. So this is the end of this presentation, and thank you everyone for listening. We will welcome any questions that you may have. And here are the references for this presentation.